broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil a public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So, welcome everybody to this meeting today. So, first of all, do we have any apologies, substitutions, or declarations of interest?
For Dana, we have apologies from Councillor McKay and substituted by Councillor Cassidy. So we'll move to a roll call. Can the following candidates please indicate they're present at the meeting? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
In the chamber.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In the chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
I was last to stay.
It's agenda item number 8, the governance of external organisations. I'm on the board of IDCSS. I've applied the objective test and don't believe I need to recuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Robertson.
Thanks. Same paper, PP, and on the board of the Beacons. Same objective test looked at.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Curley.
Same paper. I'm on board on our side. I'm applied to the Green Marine Park. Again, after applying the objective test, I don't think I need to leave the room for this item.
Yep. Councillor Law.
Similar to colleagues there, agenda item number 8, I'm on the board of the Community Development Trust.
Okay, and you feel we don't need to leave that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 2, the 2024-25 Policy Resources and General Fund Revenue Budget paper. We're going to Angela for that.
This is the usual update report, the latest update report for the committee's revenue budget and also the general fund revenue budget. We'd like to highlight that the service committee budget is overspent by 204,000. This is a reduction from the last report that we got up to 20. The general fund position is out 224 million in 12. Again, it's a reduction on the since report being put up to the last committee. Also like to highlight with the overspent of million in 12, this has an impact on the general fund reserves position, which is below the £1 million limit recommended level at this time. Also, the report gives the usual update based on the common good, earmarked reserves for the service committee, and the earmarked reserves for the overall council, and the reserves position. Also, we would normally give an update to savings work streams, but just to note that this is not included in this report this time, but it follows on later with the budget update report. With the work streams updating the budget update report, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Angela? Is there anything online? Okay, we have recommendations at 2.0, which is to note from 2.1 to 2.4. Is everybody content to note that? Great. Thank you, everybody. Item 3, Policy and Resources Capital Budget and Council 24-28 Capital Programme. That's Matt, that's going to be taking us through that.
Thank you, Ian Wiener. Hopefully you can all hear me all right. Again, this is the standard capital report for the Policy and Resources. It does cover the Policy and Resources own capital programme, which as we can see is a total of 7.5 million. It's on target at the moment, and there's no slippage reported in year for that. And some of the narratives included 3.2 onwards. I'll not go through detail of that. In terms of the overall capital programme, then we've got a £78 million budget, and we're currently projecting 81.2 million. That's a 3.1 million overspend, up at 4%. That's well within the 5% tolerance we normally have in here, so there's no issues there. And you can see we're currently net advancement of 2.5 million, which is a fairly healthy position. I would caution this slightly and say we're hitting that time of year when we're starting to get some slippage. and there's a couple of projects we're concerned about, so that is likely to come down in future, although hopefully still stay in an advanced position. We're also asking to note that we've received £514,000 capital grant funding related to free school meals. Now, you'll be aware that we've already implemented the free school meals, so this is effectively additional funding. We're proposing to use that grant funding to replace some of the revenue funding in place and return that to help out with the revenue reserves. So that's the main gist of the report. We're asking you to obviously note the position, hopefully agree the replacement of £514,000 revenue funding with the capital grant, and also to note that later on the agenda, the private papers, there is a proposal to allocate some of the contingency towards another project, and the detail will be included later on. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Matt? No. So the recommendations. Oh, sorry, Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Mayor. Look at 2.6, allocating some funding to Deakin. You have the discussed education and girls' school okay, don't have a name for repairs, maintenance. That's also consider that's part of that. Can't keep that 1.5 million, something like that. But very good facility, and we should maintain it now.
So, Councillor McVeigh, would you be content with officers taking that away to look at that and bringing a future report? Is that, are you content with that? Okay, does anybody else want to come in on this item? Okay, so our recommendations at 2.1, 2.3 is for noting, and we are asked at 2.2 to agree to replace the 514,000 from the revenue reserves to support the capital programme, and adding to that recommendation what Councillor McVeigh said there about getting a report back to future committee. Is everybody in agreement with that? Great. Fantastic, thank you. So item number 4 is the finance services update, and Alan is going to take us through that.
Thanks for being here. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the usual wide-ranging report covering a number of matters dealt by the finance service at present. I would highlight just 2 or 3 of them. One is I would highlight the commendation received from the DWP regarding the performance of the benefits service over the last year or so. I would highlight that this report includes the annual Delivering Differently programme update, and obviously there's a number of projects that are complete, and obviously they're seeking approval for the addition of a new project in relation to school catering. And there's a short form attached as Appendix 2, and the report also includes the annual insurance fund update and highlights the increased pressure on the insurance fund arising from the fire and subsequent demolition of the Park Primary School, and also further figures from Glasgow City Council who are administering the former Stratford region child claims. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Alan? Alex? Councillor Robertson?
Thanks very much, Camilla. My questions relate to paragraph 3.16, the replacement of the financial management system. Obviously, we've now got a contract with the current provider till the end of the financial year 2028. I'm just wondering, obviously, that's a clock then that is now absolutely running, because by what I'm reading there won't be an extension possible beyond that time. So obviously we could run with the current system, which I think is maybe a bit disappointing, but what is happening in terms of finding a replacement now? The clock is really running for that to be replaced.
Thank you, Camilla. The early preparatory work has commenced. 3 years, 4 years is not an unrealistic time for replacing the system. But having been through it before, albeit 20 odd years ago, I know it takes longer than you think it will, and will cost more than you originally set out that it will cost. I met with the wider finance service earlier today to have initial discussions, and I've asked Angela to start the preparatory work in examining what the options are. And in discussions, Angela and I have had a couple of discussions with a couple of councils who are either in the process of implementing finance systems or having done so recently. And my intention would be that before I finish, I get something to the chief executive with an estimate of what it would cost and how long it will take to come in. But I would say to elected members, this will be a significant sum and will require money to be set aside, but not part of this budget. It's likely to be the next budget round that you're looking at that. But it is an absolute core system for the council, so it's important it's done right.
Are you happy with that? Elizabeth?
Can I come back?
Yes,
in as
feel
well?
free.
Thanks.
Councillor.
So I think it's probably a 22-year-old system. I think if we don't think we need to spend the money on something that's going to be future-proof, then we're probably not, again, paying attention to what the requirement is. What I would ask is, are we doing things within our own system to really make the most of what options are available? So actually asking the people who use the financial management system on a day-to-day basis, what could be better, what would better functionality look like, what would the requirements of a new system be, rather than simply taking what happens to be an off-the-shelf offer from potentially sources out there, but actually almost finding out what our problems are, what our problems to solve are, and building that into whatever we get in the future.
Through convenience. Certainly that was the initial part of the discussion with the finance colleagues initially. Obviously that will be expanded out to the services. The elected members and the council need to be realistic about what the council can afford. We are not going to bring in a Glasgow City Council or a Birmingham City Council system that will cost tens and tens of millions of pounds. We're going to have to be realistic. And if the core requirement for me would do the basics well, make sure we can do the things we need to do. There are other facilities, there are other bells and whistles we can add in at that point in time. But we had an initial discussion, Angela issued a questionnaire to the finance team to get their initial feedback. That will be rolled out. So it's early stages of this. It will be a big job for the council. And as I say, significant sums of money will need to be set aside.
Councillor Robertson, do you want to follow up on that? Are you quickly to? Councillor Curley, you were next.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Just with respect to the £120,000 identified as a possible saving for the catering review, usually when I see in the reports at the back, the 120k is an annual net impact, and it's in brackets, I take it that's one in the bag and it goes in, but I'm presuming that this is still a possible saving. It will depend on the review. And also, I was wondering where, obviously talking about getting an external company to come in and actually undertake this review, where would that cost be captured? That would just generally captured in the overall budget?
Again, through you, convener, the 120,000 is a savings target. It is a prudent savings target. At the moment, officers have already identified vacancies that could be deleted that come to £85,000 of that. So it's not a challenging target. We spend over £3 million on a catering. So it's a pretty low bar. We're talking about saving 1% of the balance to get to the balance of the figure. The costs of bringing in the external party, and those discussions are still ongoing between Ruth and myself and Tony, to come in and do this work with methodological be reserved that elected members agreed for the delivery of savings.
Okay.
Yep.
Just on that, obviously, if you say there's a £3 million budget there for catering, so what I'm just wondering is what is the scope of the review of if officers have already identified £85,000, which would be an easy enough saving to achieve. What sort of scope is the review going to have a possibility to actually look at a large amount of service redesign, maybe actually opportunities to actually look at how we could actually gain additional income from the service, that kind of thing? I'm just wondering where do we pitch this review at?
So you probably more than happy to pass over to Ruth as well, based on what the proposals are. This is looking at schools catering, so it's not really looking at developing income. In fact, it's going the other way. We're reducing the amount of income we're collecting, but it is looking at the fact, as the document in Appendix 2 says, is there hasn't been a review of catering and school catering for many years. Things will have moved on And we know that many councils have gone through reviews and made changes to the way that they deliver their service. So we just want to make sure we're doing things and getting the best bang for money we can out of the school catering service. And that'll be part of the review. And there's all these reviews that we've done in conjunction with trade unions.
Okay, can I just bring in Ruth? I'm aware that she wants to come in, and that might, and then I'll let you come back in, Councillor Crowley. Ruth, do you want to come back in?
Yes.
Or come in?
So through you, convener. So basically, what the review will be looking at is efficiencies and the processes. So it's not, as Alan said, it's not a huge amount, a savings target against it, but we are looking at best practice across the country. And we know there are different types of processes in place which may be much more efficient for us delivering the school meal services. So we know there's been significant changes. You know, we've got the online ordering. We've also got early years added in. So it's time now. One hasn't been undertaken in the last 12 to 15 years. So it's time now to just have a look at resource allocation and how the processes take place.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Do you want to come back in?
Yeah, just a minor point. Thank you for that. I'm just looking at the situation where I'm thinking about the income generation, about delivering things differently. I'm also conscious of the fact that we also have the HSCP and we're dealing with what they call people who are needing what they call meals, etc. We've got kitchens there. We've got opportunities there as an opportunity to effectively sweat the asset and use that facility for providing meals to other people, not just for schools catering.
Okay, I'm not sure who wants to come back in.
I could just confirm that's not part of the review.
Louise.
Through yourself, convener. Well, I think we probably need to get the APSI review done in relation to catering and understanding the processes. If there's a wider opportunity, obviously the HSCP is a £5.2 million target that they are trying to address in relation to their gap, and they're looking at all sorts of things. I don't actually know that we deliver an awful lot of meals on wheels. We certainly don't do that in relation to older people anymore, and so I can't think we were doing that. But I can ask Kate to have a look at if there's something that's still to be delivered from a HSCP perspective. But none of them is coming to mind, and I know that area very well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McVeigh, you were next.
Thank you, Convener. My question on the one different the programme shared service is in the audit. This has been going around for quite a while. I think it's fair to start to bring the conclusion. So are we going to be asked to make a final decision on it when it comes to the full pension in December?
There will be a report come to the council which will seek a member's decision. I think the only advice I would give elected members is the position in terms of shared services is always evolving though. So I'd never say any decision on shared services is final. The members that need to continue the shared service, and I was charged with going to look for potential expansion of that, and there'll be a report going to the council committee on the December.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor Nelson. Oh, sorry, actually, Councillor Nelson, it's Councillor Armstrong that was next. Sorry, apologies.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, I just had a query on paragraph 3.8 about individuals who are in receipt of enhanced disability premium or pension age disability payment, and that they should not now lose that premium if they're in hospital for 28 days or more. But it seems to be, well, is there any way, it says there, we don't know who they are, we don't know who's affected, but is there anybody else who would know? I mean, is it worth, asking or having some sort of publicity to make sure that people don't, in fact, lose this premium? I don't know who that would be, DWP, IJP, I don't know, but is there any way of someone else or another organisation following that up?
I'll bring Tracy in to answer that.
Through you, conveners, thank you. The way that the service would identify people going forward in the future would be to examine their housing benefit or council tax reduction claim records, and in that way the individual would receive the premium that they are entitled to. It's perhaps the way that the report has been worded, that we're not able to go back and look retrospectively at claims, but we can certainly do it, and people won't miss out in the future now that the amendment has been made to the legislation.
Okay, that's reassuring going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies again, Councillor Nelson. Do you want to come in?
Yeah,
just interested in the previous discussions that were around the school meals and looking at reducing our budget with the way that there's been increases in food prices. We're all very much aware of that, especially when we go to the supermarket. So food prices have increased, and also wages have been increased, obviously, for staff and things like that. Is it possible to be doing what you're talking about, trying to bring the budget down while maintaining, the same quality of food for the children?
Do you convener? Yes, it's because the way that we will do budgeting, that we will add the pay awards in, we will add inflation for food into the budget. So it's not a flat cash budget that we're taking money off. It's a budget that has money added to it every single year because pay awards, changes in pension, national insurance, that sort of thing. So really the savings would come from whether there are efficiencies that can be made in the way that we deliver that service, whether there are efficiencies in utility costs, whether there are efficiencies in employees, whether there are efficiencies in reducing food waste. So it's just to say it would be an actual real term reduction based on a correct budget.
Are you satisfied with that, Ian? Okay, thank you, colleagues, for that discussion there. So under the recommendations, we are asked to note 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, and to agree to add the review of schools catering as set out in Appendix 2. Is everybody content with that? So item number 5, the corporate policy update. We are going over to Mona for that.
Thank you. This update covers 3 aspects. Firstly, provides a brief overview of the programme for government, which of course covers most September 2024, not 2023, if it's in the report, apologies for that. Highlights in paragraph 3.5, 3 issues of particular relevance to number 5, notable presence. Then goes on to talk about strategic plan performance management framework, proposals around a mid-term evaluation of that, which will involve a survey of elected members as well as extended program management scheme. And the third aspect updates on the Proposal Excellence Award, which I'm applying with the winner of the Just Transition Net Zero Economy category in relation to restoration and treatment.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to address the Proposal Excellence Award, which we're very pleased to have got it, and I congratulate the officers who did get it. This was an expenditure of £960,000, which did not come from our budget. I'm quite sure if we'd been asked out of our budget to spend £960,000 up in the moors above Kilmacombe and Greenock, I don't think we'd have done it. Effectively, what we did is our farmers for the last 200 years have looked after those moors. Yes, they did put some drainage in themselves to assist the growth of heather and grass, to put their sheep and their cattle on. We've gone along with this peat restoration and simply destroyed any of the drainage they've done, and it will affect their ability to earn money in the future because of that. Now, why did we do this? And I've noticed that since the Greens have left the coalition with the SNP in Hollywood, we're seeing less crazy things coming out. And what's happening with the SNP in Hollywood is now much more sensible. This is one of the things where we spent money on something. At the end of the day, peat grows 1 millimetre a year. In the world context, in terms of net zero, it was a pointless exercise. So I really congratulate our staff on winning the award, but I think we must be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for your comments there. And I want to make sure that it's noted that there was also some other works done at the Coast Local Nature Reserve as well that the award was won for. I'm going to bring Stuart in on this to comment on your comment.
Thank you.
For you, convener. Councillor Wilson, as part of our net zero action plan, peatland restoration was a key component of that. We were fortunate that we did receive money from the Scottish Government, but there was an allocation within the initial allocation made by Council for peatland restoration, and members recognise that peatland restoration, the fact that peat is a major carbon sink and allows us to offset our carbon targets against peat is an important factor. So I don't necessarily agree with your comments that peat isn't an important resource. We've used it very well. The fact that we did win an award is neither here nor there as far as the peatland restoration and carbon offsetting comes into the process. And we did do it in conjunction with the farmers, and the farmers both at Hardridge and Dowries were supportive of our actions.
Yeah. Okay, that Councillor Robertson with that explanation. Thank you very much.
I've heard it before.
I'm sure you have. Okay, colleagues, I can't see anybody else wanted to come in, so the recommendation is to note. Oh, apologies. When I looked up, the light wasn't on. Councillor Curley.
No, I was just waiting to see what Stuart said.
Okay, no, that's fair.
I think it is important that we can't all leave it to somebody else to deal with climate emergency. We've all got to play our part. It may be a small part according to the whole world, but for Inverclyde and our ability to actually to be a proper carbon sink using the ample peatlands we actually have available to us, I think it's very important we took this opportunity to take the Scottish Government's money and have a long-term environmental improvement in both the peatland and in our net zero ability to contribute to net zero.
Thank you, Councillor Curley. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Convener. So last Environment Generation Committee, I took the opportunity to highlight this award that our staff picked up. It was an excellent piece of work. I've been up and seen the peatland restoration project myself, and it is an impressive piece of work. I spoke to one of the tenant farmers, and they're really happy with what has been done. And I just think this is a prime example of some of the excellent collaboration work that our officers do with a range of partners. And it's just one of the many things that our officers do that sometimes don't get the praise, and it's great to see them get this kind of national recognition because we were up against a number of other projects and bigger councils. So it's great to see us punching above our weight.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Robertson.
Thanks for bringing me in. I think I actually want to kind of agree with what Councillor Cassidy's just said there in terms of the partnership approach to doing that piece of work. And consistently, I think we heard on the night, those of us who were at the Awards, the enthusiasm of our staff was highlighted several times, and that's absolutely the case. But I wanted to take the opportunity to also kind of mention Ronnie Cowan here, who was a very early promoter of this opportunity for Inverclyde, and actually made sure that it happened here in Inverclyde. So I just want to kind of put on record that partnership to extend to Ronnie, who was the MP at the time, and he really did promote this from a very early stage and made sure that it became a reality.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Thank you, colleagues, for all your contributions to this item. So is everybody happy to note the latest updates? So item number 6 is the Policy and Resources Committee. Item number 6 is the Policy and Resources Committee Delivery and Improvement Plan 23-26 Performance Report, and that's Morna.
Thank you. This report provides an update of progress made in the delivery of the Policy and Resources Improvement Plan. It's the first progress report on year 2 of the refreshed plan. At Appendix 1, you'll find detail of the progress in relation to actions. Appendix 2 runs through the performance indicators, and Appendix 3 provides a script. So also quite detail in the report, so in the story.
Okay, thank you, Morna. Anybody got any questions for Morna? Councillor Robertson.
Thanks. My questions relate to 3.7, the areas where there's been slippage. Obviously, we know, and we've kind of talked in several forum as to why there has been slippage. It's really a comment probably what I want to make, and it's a repetition of something that I said in, I think it might have been the Education Committee, I can't be certain, but the strategic analysis that has been provided, that was completed in October, we know it should have been it was planned to be done earlier, but it was done in October. Truly is excellent. It's a really, really good piece of work. And the question that I had in the previous forum where we discussed this, and I'm just, it's one of these ones that I'm going to just say over and over again to make sure that it happens, is allowing people to share that strategic analysis, beyond the organisation, partner organisations, third sector organisations, because if organisations are putting out a large funding bid to a national funder or whatever, then they're asked, what's the demographics, what's the context of your area? And actually, rather than going back to first principles at every turn, this is a really, really good piece of work that says, this is what I'm afraid it's like, these are what the needs are, these are how they're expressed, verifiable stats, all that type of thing. And it's just a repetition of the plea that we put that out as well, please, because we can, so that it's of use to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Are you content to do that, Monica? Or you want to come in?
Through yourself, convener, just to say, perhaps one of the ways to take it forward, and obviously Councillor Robertson's the chair of the Alliance, is for us to take it to the Alliance, attached as a paper, and then sign and post it on the website. And so that way, if our third sector, I can see why third sector organisations can access that information. So I think maybe that's maybe the best route to make sure all partners see it, and actually then it'll be on our website if that's okay.
Yeah. Councillor Long.
Thanks, convener. My question regarding page 49 in relation to the end of the programme. I welcome the improvement on figures, but it shows a good available family group and national figures. Just wondered if there any information to the difference there between our area and the national figures.
Monica.
Thank you. It's good to review. I don't have an awful lot of detail to hand, certainly want to follow up and look at a little more detail. Our family is both of course similar to us in terms of demographics. Some differences are like driving that, and obviously Scotland wide figure up to everybody, but if you look at
Thank you, Monica. Are you quite happy with that? Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Convener. I'm looking at modern apprentices when they refer back to 153 where the top reference talks about shortage in some populations. Now, it's not very clear. The details where the modern apprentices are going, but if I look at the examples given, planning officers, environmental way, of course, are having trouble recruiting foreign disciplines. And one of the limitations in modern apprentices, now, do we have any stop from the age for the moment that have put modern apprentices into these positions?
Okay. So just, yep, I'll bring in Stuart and then I'll make a comment. Stuart.
Through you, convener, really struggled to hear Councillor McVeigh's question.
That's McVeigh, do you want to see your question?
We were employed about 66 modern apprentices last year, but we're highlighted in the policy and resources development plan, this register that there was shortage in recruiting staff in planning and environmental health, with the examples given. Now, are we recruiting in those areas or some areas where we have shortages? Or I don't know if it's very not possible depending on the entry level, but I'm just wondering if we're taking on the modern apprentices, are we now targeting to areas where we see the most need?
Stuart.
Through you, convener. There are a number of pressure areas within the local authority whereby we are struggling to get technical staff, and where there is a route through a modern apprentice programme, we do so. We're currently engaged with the University of West Scotland about a planning qualification whereby it's slightly above modern apprentice, but there's many examples where in the past we've managed to develop modern apprentices, indeed pre-foundation apprentices through modern apprentices through to fully qualified staff individuals. So we do look to maximise opportunities where there are pressure points. In terms of planning and environmental services at this moment in time, we haven't got any modern apprentices in those areas, but for example, in environmental services, we've got graduates in the programme. So we've got a number of interventions available to us, and that's where we try to maximise the employment opportunities for young people within Inverclyde.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks for the Simpson. But I'm thinking that if we're highlighting the areas where we have issues, we can always look at putting modern apprentices into those issues. Or imagine something.
Councillor McVeigh, Morna's going to come in on that. She's indicated, so she might be able to answer your question. Maybe.
Thank you. So the other relevant aspect is the work we're doing in terms of professional qualifications for existing staff, and that kind of grow your own approach. So existing staff and giving them an opportunity for funded training provision, and certainly we've targeted that on those kind of hard to fill posts. So that may be helpful with that professional brief.
Okay, Councillor McBee.
Just that includes planning and environmental services council.
Thank you,
Yes.
Chief.
Yeah, my comment was going to be at the City Region Cabinet. They're looking at the panel qualification, but Stuart took those words right out of my mouth. Anybody else want? Oh, sorry, Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Convener. Yes, I just wanted to say that I agree with Councillor Law that the gender pay gap figures are very disappointing. They're of great concern, and I just wanted to make the comment that perhaps it's something that all members could learn more about in the forthcoming equalities training. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and we'll make sure that that information gets sent around to everybody. And yes, the forthcoming training should hopefully highlight some information around that as well. Thank you, colleagues. I don't see any other hands up. So the recommendation is to consider the progress. I hope we've done that today. Let's move on to item number 7. So item number 7, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report. This is going to be taken by Alan.
Thank you, Convener. This is the mid-year Treasury report, which needs to be remitted to the Council for approval. The cash flow has improved since the previous report, as we provide advance of payments in late September from the Scottish Government as they brought in a new system of payments. These were recorded in October, so the spike you can see at the end of September has reduced. I do expect that to order later this month, and that will hopefully be at a lower rate of interest, because interest rates have begun to drop, albeit slowly. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from colleagues? I see no lights on. Everybody happy to accept the recommendations at 2.0?
Agreed.
1 or 2. Thank you very much. So, on to item number 8, the governance of external organisations, the annual update and review. That is Angela that will be taking us through that.
Thank you. And thank you, Convener. This is a report that we do every year to update you about the governance of the external organisations. The report is quite small, but there is a number of things in there that's been recommended this time round. So just run through those quickly. That's okay. Last year, the committee approved a new process for the oversight process for the governance of external organisations, and you can find that Appendix 1, the report in here. And what we have also provided, and this one is Appendix 2, which is in private papers just now, and that gives an overview of the governance that has taken place this year. There is reports that go to the individual service committees, and they give a lot more detail around about those areas. The report has also recommended a change to how a tiered approach to how we govern these organisations, that the tier being based on those organisations that are linked to the annual accounts, and tier 2 would have a lighter touch. And that process is outlined, I think it's in Appendix 4 going forward. Also, we're looking here for a reaching time as well, because currently we report to committee round about November, which is in line with when the reports are done for the service committee. So we're asking that to be delayed a little bit, this report till after the Christmas period. One thing to highlight in the report is there has been issues raised around about the living wage, so you'll see this in the report and how actually companies are struggling to pay that, or in the may potentially struggle, and we are recommending that we're looking for recommendation around about mandating the real living wage, and we'll also be there. We also can bring back some information around about financial implications of that. Also to highlight finally, as the committee there was an outstanding action from last time about the councillors on boards, and we're asking for a report to be brought back to that by September 25 to full council to try and get any questions or.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, I think potentially Stuart, it's the microphones and the way that they were being used. So if you could pull your microphone towards you, then no, it's okay. It's just for if you're answering any questions. And I just want to say that just bear in mind that Appendix 2 is a private item, so make sure that in public session you limit your question or your comments around that. Does anybody want to come in on this item? Right, I see nobody looking to come in. So is everybody content with the recommendations at 2.0? Agreed. Thank you, Andrew. Okay. So item 9, the Implied Council Plan Annual Performance Report for 23-24, and Morna will be speaking to that.
Thank you. This was subject to my member briefing earlier on today. This provides an overview of performance over the past year in relation to our pension plan for 2028. Aim to provide a balanced range of quality and quantity information on the pension performance and as part of our performance reporting duties. It covers the themes of equal weight and performance, and that makes those headings gives examples of good practice, as well as a performance dashboard and performance centre features. Following approval by committee, the report will be published on the website and promoted to the public and to employment.
Thank you, Morna. I know we had a briefing literally a couple of hours ago, so it's fresh in our heads. Does anybody have any further comments or questions for today? No, is everybody content to accept the recommendations? Okay. Item number 10 is the Workplace Information Activity Report, the WIRE report. And Morna, it's over to you again.
Thank you. This is also subject list member briefing earlier on today. The WIRE, the Workforce Information Activity Report, is produced to help inform workforce planning decisions by the council. This report contains information on employee attendance, employee demographic, professional agency workers, HR support community, OT support community, as well as health and safety. I've highlighted the briefing and information in the cover report, supporting employee attendance and effective substantially focus by council and CMT, and we agreed at the members briefing and provide supplementary document providing additional information of what would we can address the employee strength have to be for the questions.
Thank you, Morna. Does anybody have any further questions? Is everybody content to note the contents of the WIRE report?
Agreed.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. So item number 11, the annual update on the use of surveillance powers, the regulation of investigative powers Act 2000 RIPSA report. I know that this was at Education and Community recently, and I believe, Lindsay, you're going to be taking us through that.
Thank you, Sinead. Good afternoon, members. This is the annual update on council's use of directed surveillance powers pursuant to the 2000 Act known as RIPSA. Members will be aware that RIPSA provides a legal framework to regulate the use by local authorities and law enforcement agencies of covert surveillance and to cover covert human intelligence solutions also. The council must comply with RIPSA and the council's own RIPSA policy. The council's policy is reviewed annually to ensure that the policy and practice is in line with this. Having conducted this year's review, it is the view of officers that the policy does remain fit for purpose, and as such, no substantive changes are proposed. Members will note that it is proposed to make some minor administrative changes. It's also important that, given the potential use of these powers, members are regularly updated on their use and wider surveillance powers. Members were last updated on these in November 2023, and since then I can report that the council has not made any further use of its surveillance powers or of any other covert human intelligence source. Members will see that there's a robust process that must be followed by any member who is seeking to use surveillance or covert human intelligence sources, and regular review of this procedure will assist in ensuring that the council remains in compliance with the legislation. Happy to take any questions.
Colleagues, any questions? No. Is everybody happy to accept the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so item 12, the 25-26 revenue budget. This will be Alan that does this now. I believe this is usually one where we have technical and then budgetary discussion.
Thank you, Rowena. This report provides an update on the work undertaken by the team over the last 2 months. In relation to the 25-26 budget, it provides an update on the work streams, which have also been provided to the programme board, and updates regarding the autumn statement from the Scottish Government budget date plans, and also highlighting the planned reporting to members immediately before and after the festive break. There are various recommendations which I'm happy to provide more detail on, and I will send any questions. Thank you, Rowena.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. We're all aware of the horrible cuts we've had to make over the past number of years, and we're aware that we'll wait for the Scottish budget to be set so that we know how much we're getting. Does anybody have any questions for Alan on 92? Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Alan, can I ask, big page 192 at 2.2, the addition of a teacher work stream. What is a teacher's work stream? What could that encompass? Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, what you'll see is in the appendices, there's an outline of the work that's been carried out, and also if any members are struggling to read the A4 page, there's an A3 page for the work streams at the back as well, which I'm finding increasingly useful. And you'll see that within that, it outlines the potential proposal there to reduce the number of teachers, and that has been discussed at the programme board and will be more detailed as part of the future report. So we're talking about deleting some vacancies.
That's welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowley.
Couple of questions. The first one's on the £700,000 pressure allowance to be built into the 25-26 budget. I think previous papers to this committee or similar have talked about a 1.1 pressure. So is £700,000 what officers consider we need to incorporate into next year's budget so far, based on the fact that the other pressures have been identified which should be able to be accommodated within this year? Is that the first question?
Do you convene? I think I've been flagging up to committee that in terms of new pressures, it was somewhere of the order of £700,000-800,000, and we're looking for about 1.2 million of savings, but that included existing workstream savings. So the new savings, the net new savings was around about £700,000, and the new pressures and the new savings cross council, subject to elected members ultimately agreeing the savings, which again proposed that would be early 2025.
So yeah, so that's £700,000 just for my benefit then is effectively we believe that our savings we've already identified should cancel that budget pressure.
That is the plan, and obviously in the very first report Angela presented, we're reporting £1 million overspend this year. And that action has been taken by officers to reduce those pressures and address some of those pressures, and that work will continue. And the plan is that in the planned early 2025 council budget report, a detailed list of those pressures would need to be signed off by elected members so we could adjust the budgets accordingly to make sure that they're addressed for 25-26.
Okay, that gets me. That's my £1 million. Right. So my second question is obviously we're coming up to this time of year, which we were getting. There's a lot of activity with respect to and a lot of fast activity. I'm conscious of the fact that we have one outstanding item from last year's budget, which was the resetting of this year's council tax. I'm wondering whether we plan to do that, because I know we have to do it before we set next year's council tax.
My plan would be to include that in the actual budget report when the council tax is set. So it's just part of the same day you would take a decision regarding this year's council tax increase, and then you take a decision regarding next year's council tax increase, all as part of the same meeting.
But it will be immediately before we played the council tax for next year. I'm just conscious of the fact obviously there was agreement with the Scottish Government when we did it. Has that discussion been undertaken with the Scottish Government with respect to the actual timing of it?
The Scottish Government, through the officials, were relaxed about when we did it before we set next time's council tax increase. Okay. It would seem more joined up to take both decisions at the same time.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Councillor Crowley, are you quite content?
No, that's fine.
Councillor McVeigh, and then Councillor Moran.
Follow up against what Alan did. Last year we got the additional funding to fund the agriculture trees. Do you anticipate that will be itemised in the forthcoming Scottish Government budget, or will it be as we've seen in the past? It's in your settlement, if that's it.
My expectation is that there will be a specific line in the budget. Directors of Finance get a reconciliation of what's called the base budget. It's like this year, isn't it, Angela? Because we normally get it in October, we'll now come to the end of November. But that's a list just to demonstrate that everything, what's been added in, what's been taken out to give the base position. The thing that is usually announced on the day when the councils understand their budget position is there's an adjustment figure that goes into the changes column. That could be there's a £200 million cut, or there's a £200 million added in to the budget. But I would thoroughly expect that £210 million that was allocated towards councils for fees in their council tax will appear as a separate line in the overall budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Moran.
Aye, thanks, Convener. My question is 3.15, the view of the floor. You know, this mechanism put into health as the poorer councils fall through the net, and the more affluent councils that are part of that supported that, but Scottish Government is now looking at again, and there might be a significant less money coming towards our council if the floor cease to exist or they change the mechanism. So my question would be is, how much of a problem would that be if they were to change the floor?
Through you, Convener, at this point in time, my understanding of the floor review, and I've been part of the review group with Scottish Government officials and other council chief financial officers, is purely looking at within that range of 0.25% to 0.75%, which I refer to in here. The last number of years, until last year, it had been 0.25% that optimised the protection for those areas with decreasing population. Historically, it's been on the west coast of Scotland. The areas that have received the bulk of the protection from the floor. The worst case scenario from an Inverclyde Council perspective that I would foresee is it goes up to 0.75%. Doesn't sound a lot, but when you're talking about half of 1% of 200 million, that's £1 million you're looking at. And that's why I refer to this figure of £800,000. So that's as bad as I think it could get. But because the leaders need to take a decision on this, they're getting a paper at the end of this month. And then thereafter, this is a decision for the Scottish Government. And it's always been a decision the Scottish Government Minister has taken, not one that COSL leaders take, not one that officers take, and that will be part of the 12th of December announcement. That's when we'll get the clarity, and then other decisions will flow from that, and which I've outlined in here, and I've mentioned at the programme board as well, as to actions that the council may have to take, but I would wait to see what's in the settlement first.
Yeah, I think my fear, Alan, is like yourself, and other forums I meet other council people all over Scotland, and certainly the ones in East of Scotland are shouting, bother, they're not enough resources for a bigger population expansion. So there's a real battle going on in that to say. So I hope that the C sense here and keep it as and don't tell anyone run off this.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thanks, Councillor Moran. Councillor Curley.
Just a question about the floor. Is it 16 councils benefit from the floor and 16 to get disadvantaged from the floor, or is it a case of it depends how much the increase is? Is it? I'm just wondering. Obviously, I can see why the Scottish Government has to decide who the floor is, because if you get 16 and 16, you're not going to decide who in COSL is going to get it. So I just wonder how does it work in practice? How many councils get the benefit of the floor with respect to reductions or minimising the reductions in their overall revenue budget?
Thank you, Convener. I don't sound like Donald Rumsfeld, though I sound like Rumsfeld, but there are some councils who objectively gain from the floor because their settlement is worse than the average by more than 0.25%, so they get protection. There are some councils who will contribute to the floor because they maybe end up with a growth of 2%. In Inverclyde last year, we were actually going to gain. We actually got a better settlement because remember our population growth was bigger. But then we ended up contributing to the floor because so anything we gained from having a bigger population ended up being given to other councils, and so we ended up at the floor. So you end up with some councils who will get assistance from the floor every single year. I won't name those councils, but you can see them in there. In Scottish Government.
Name them.
No, sorry, you probably know one. But it's public. And you'll end up with councils that contribute to the floor every single year. They tend to be the faster populating areas of Scotland. And you end up with ones in the middle that cobble about, and we're one of the cobblers, right? So usually it's about 7 or 8 gain. Usually it's about 16 contribute. But of the ones that contribute, they tend to end up at, some of them end up at 4 like us. So we're no better off than those who gave from the floor. So it's a complicated answer, but it's a necessity, because if there wasn't a floor, there'd be some councils that would not survive very long because of historical issues that have happened. Inverclyde is not in that bracket. We tend to sort of be on the margins of contributing to the floor or getting in from the floor.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
I see no more lights on in the chamber. There is 8 recommendations. I won't read them all out. Are we in agreement with the 8 recommendations as on page 1 and 2?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, item number 13, anti-poverty fund. That is Alan.
Thank you, Convener. This report seeks committee approval for the free poverty payment fund, the anti-poverty fund. Obviously, acutely aware of the sensitivity that there is around this issue in general, so as a result of the Strategic Leaders Forum, where there was discussion, and as a report indicates, officers picked up that there was general support for the proposal here. It is proposed that £600,000 is set aside to cover a 2-year period. The proposal for year 1 and in this report relates to pensionable household poverty, but that doesn't mean that year 2 has to be that, and officers are indicating that they would go away, work on proposals to be brought back for the winter of 2025. And both myself, Chief Executive, Ruth, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so just to make clear, it's only for this year that future proposals will come back for 2025. Excellent. Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you very much. I welcome this report and I compliment officers for coming up with this, which will help in a small way to alleviate the withdrawal of the £300 winter fuel payment, which was created in Westminster, but equally has not been altered in any way by Holyrood. I'd like to also compliment my colleague, Councillor Brooks, who initially came up with the idea. It was then taken to the Strategic Leadership Forum and has moved on from there, and it's a most welcome addition to what we do within this council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Powley.
Yeah, thank you. I'm conscious of the fact is that we're still with the Westminster winter fuel payment this year up until 2024. Next year, the plan is that there'll be a Scottish version of it. We know there's, well, I'm not going to rehearse the arguments here in this thing, but obviously, I'm conscious of the fact is we've got a 1-year plan here, and then we'll obviously have to take cognizance of what's proposed by the Scottish Government for next year, and whether or not that's going to be means tested, etc. We don't know at this point in time. So what we'll basically have to see is, I'm glad to see it's 1 year, but also we're having an eye to next year. But obviously, we'll need to. I think for everybody's benefit, we need to make sure we get a paper as early as possible next year, and look at this next year so that people in Inverclyde know, both from a national point of view, Scottish point of view, what the Scottish winter fuel payment is going to be. Apologies, I can't remember its official name, and also what if you plan to do anything in Inverclyde to again mitigate further.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Is there any predicted timescales for when that paper would come back, just based on your timing question? Sorry.
I think it is a good point that Councillor Curley makes around the timing of it, but it's also a good point that to some degree the reason that we're recommending as officers of 1 year is because to see what would happen over the next 9 months, both at a UK level and a Scottish level, if we don't make a commitment to do something that may be getting paid for elsewhere. So the timing of the report back to some degree, we're in the hands of what the UK government, the Scottish government do over the next 9 months. But the reason that we're putting it up to the November Policy and Resource Committee this year is to try and get things in train to assist people with their bills over the winter period.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And just to point out as well that this paper touches on the Warm Hands of Friendship funding as well that's available. Is everybody in the chamber quite content with accepting the recommendations?
Yeah.
Thank you, colleagues. Okay, so next item on our agenda today is item 15, the SOLAS Improving Local Government Benchmarking Framework 23-24 in September, refreshing on an issue.
Thank you. The local government benchmark brings together a wide range of information around Scottish Council reform and organised services to local communities. You'll see in paragraph 3.6 a brief overview of Inverclyde Council's performance in the latest HA And just a reminder that a ranking of 1 is positive, so obviously we're aiming to be at the top quartile ever possible. So we have 68% of our measures, forms 2 quartiles, 13%, and 53%. Paragraphs 3.7 to 11 report reports areas of notes, and in the recommendation for more information, we're going to have the data for the family group and
A strong report here. Does anybody have any questions for more on this? No. Is everybody content to accept the recommendations?
Good.
And just to confirm, item 14 withdrawn, so that's why we didn't fall on it. Item number 16 is the NRS mid-23 population estimates Scotland report, and Lorna, that's yourself.
Well, I think the latest population statistics for by released by the National Register of Scotland in the 8th of October this year. Enterprise estimated population as at 30th of June 2023 was 78,330. That's a decrease of 20% from the previous year. In terms of drivers of that change, and to direct members of paragraphs 3.7 to 3.8, which talks about natural change, so that's the comparison to number of deaths and number of births locally, as well as migration. You'll see that between mid-2022 and mid-2023, more people moved into Upper Fife than moved out, giving us a positive net migration figure. I'd also draw members' attention to paragraph 3.14 and 3.15. We had now data in relation to Upper population characteristics, and there's a bit more of a breakdown in terms of our profile. This highlights that we have decreasing numbers of decreasing numbers of younger people in higher concentration of older people in Upper Fife. We have the third highest proportion in Scotland of older people living alone. We have issues in terms of mental health, and high proportions in relation to providing unpaid care, and also issues in terms of economically inactive population. So obviously a number of challenges that members will be able to get this information since
Thank you. Definitely an interesting paper, and I must admit, it feels like it's been a long time for us to get those census numbers through. Councillor Robertson, you were first, and then Councillor Wilson.
Thanks very much, Camilla. This is always a really interesting report to read, and actually, I think the first one in a long time where we've actually seen, if we had an aspiration for stabilising the population, this is the first one that reflects anything remotely like that. And actually, I've not got a question here. This is just common. And I think it's probably the first time where both natural change and inward and outward migration have made the significant impact of stabilisation. You know, that they've kind of weighted in as four distinct components there. Does that, there is a question then, does that change what we do in terms of the types of considerations that we have at council level, at partnership level, and my line's happening as well, in terms of how we maintain this going forward? Are our actions now different that we have to pivot?
One. Oh, Louise, do you want to?
Through yourself, Pavina, so we're part of, Stuart's team is part of a roundtable in relation to depopulation, so we are looking at what's happening in other places and what has been there now. And so we're constantly looking at depopulation because it's an issue for us. It doesn't mean we're going to stop the actions that we're taking, but we are looking at new actions, and Stuart and his team will look back, probably through the Alliance, because it's an action in relation to the Alliance, and all partners are interested in what we're doing in that space.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that Councillor Robertson made, that we have stabilised our population. The interesting thing for me is that if you compare our births with deaths, we're about 550 down. How is it getting made up that we stabilise it? It's made up by the 620 from external immigration from outside of the UK. The movement in Scotland, in and out of Scotland, is about the same. It's this external 620. Now, I did ask if somebody could give me a make-up of where the 620 is coming from, and I got those figures. It mainly seems to be West Africa, South Sudan, some Ukrainians, but it's mainly from the previous two. My next question really for you is, do we have any knowledge of these roughly 600? How many of them have jobs? And how many are living in social housing? That's a question I do get asked by my constituents. Thank you.
Okay, Lorna.
I don't know how we would access information in terms of employment status of that particular group of our local population, but colleagues may be able to correct me. Obviously, the people making inquiries are our local registered social landlords in terms of their profile as well, for looking for information in terms of tenancies.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's important to note that 3.8 is 1,940 people moving into Inverclyde. So it's actually people moving from elsewhere in Scotland that contributed most to the inward migration. And just from my own local knowledge of international migration, my understanding is, from the education and community side of things, is that a great number of them are students, and there's very strict rules for when students, international students, kind of like how when we send people, like our daughters, granddaughters, brothers, sisters, when they go to study abroad, I believe it was international students largely that were making up that number, and you need to follow strict visa rules to be able to come and study in the UK. Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Clear convener, the figures I was given did not include the international students. It was South Sudan, West Africa, and Ukraine.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Moran. Oh, were you first, Councillor Cowley? Apologies.
Thank you. I think as a son of what would be classified as an overseas migrant in Inverclyde, I suppose maybe I should declare an interest, I don't know, but I certainly welcome the fact that we have migration into Inverclyde. I think is an important part of us sustaining our local population. But hopefully I want to make sure it's a sustainable migration. If it is students, etc., what I want to say is, what can we do as a council to make sure it is sustainable? We have long-term increase in our population, and that these new migrants are able to contribute fully to our society, as indeed a lot of us have had, as our grandparents, parents, etc., have come to Inverclyde and be able to contribute to the society.
Thank you. Councillor Moran, and then Councillor McLeod.
Thanks, Convener. I mean, I think this historically, and I have to say, Councillor Wilson was one of the first ever brought our to attention that when the Bishopton development started going to suck everything in, and people just don't come down anymore because it was a Bishopton. And anybody driving up to here to Johnson, you can see the developments that take place in the Rivershire countryside. It's just amazing the amount of houses are building, and more amazingly, that people are buying them and living there. But my question would be, if you're going to compare us with Peter North Fairshire and Western Barnshire, because roughly we're the same problem to them. But they're showing a rise of 80, and the one that really surprised me, the Western Barnshire are 480. Now, is that because migration from outside the UK, or is it because they're building houses and infrastructure which makes it attractive to people to come and live in? I don't think they do enough here. There's a load of plans on the table at the moment, but they never come to fruition. They come here and they get planning and application, they pass it, 200 houses. And I've never seen a brick and laid down anywhere, yeah. So what I'm saying is this 480 because they're building houses and people want to come and live here, and there's another reason for it. Because until we start building houses and giving people somewhere to come and live, we're all going in this position.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moran. Stuart, would you be able to come in and talk a bit about the new homes, new houses in this area?
Convener, clearly population and depopulation has been a priority for the council for a number of years, and what we are trying to do is address that depopulation agenda. Part of that is through the creation of new homes, but it's also about ensuring that the homes that we've got are fit for purpose. The Chief Executive referred to the repopulation group, and committee has recently approved spend of £90,000 matching Scottish Government intervention monies. So we'll have a much better understanding in terms of demographic as to what's attracting people. We'll also be developing initiatives associated with trying to attract more people to Inverclyde. And as Councillor Moran highlights, the availability of housing is something which is fundamental, and our local housing strategy hopefully addresses that. But that looks at the whole gamut of housing, from social rented housing through to private housing, and it's making sure that Inverclyde has a mix of housing available for people, which is attractive for them to locate within Inverclyde.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Convener. The job that we're looking for some anecdotal evidence. Many people who pick up many of work, and they live in all types of housing, social housing, private rented housing, and what I'm seeing and hearing is that some of them, working particularly in the nursing or care home industry, we are now finding gaps where the staff are short, the staff are continually getting to work short, and now they're going to find out the rent in many nursing homes. So that's to be welcome. In addition, you have to remember that these people, when they're working at night, spend up to 20 minutes with so I don't like this to be about. I just thought.
No, thank you. Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. Councillor McCormick.
Thanks, Convener. Just a question for Morn on 3.15. The first bullet point, the percentage of Inverclyde's population under the age of 15 has decreased by 12% since the census 1 year earlier. Just wondering, that kind of quite a stark figure to me, and I'm just wondering what kind of impact that's going to have on school roles going forward.
Yeah.
Alex, it's fair to Ruth on school roles. Thank you.
Okay. Ruth, would you like to come in?
Yes, so we project the school rolls as we get the census data in, and we also look at the birth records. So you'll see over time that our school rolls have decreased. You know, the population is getting older, and there are less births in Inverclyde, so that is going to have an impact on the schools. So we keep monitoring them. We keep looking at the efficiency of our schools. And also it's linked to a previous paper about the amount of core teachers we need as well, if there are yet less pupils. We've stood up the school investment strategy group to look at where our schools are, how efficient they are, what teachers we need, and that's got to be balanced also by the increasing need of children with additional support needs. So we're looking at it, we're projecting, we're not seeing any major changes at the moment, but every year we refresh the exercise.
Okay, thanks, Ruth.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Okay, thank you, Aberdeen. I think what was said earlier about the figures stabilise, our population stabilise, I think we need to see this for a few years before we can step away from things like possibly the depopulation and different things. Okay, colleagues, is everybody happy to note the publication?
Agreed.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, item number 17 is the Fair Work First annual living wage statement. That's Warner as well.
Fair Work First is Scottish Government policy which requires all grant applicants receiving a public sector grant to firstly pay at least a living wage, all UK-based staff with apprentices, and secondly provide appropriate channels for effective workers' voice. We obtained an exemption agreement with the Scottish Government for 24-25 in relation to the first point, because our one prices do not currently receive the real living wage rate. We do not anticipate that exemption will continue in future financial years, and therefore it would follow that we would not meet the Fair Work First criterion, which in turn would prohibit access to a wide range of key funding streams for the council. We are therefore proposing to increase one apprentice's wage rates to the real living wage, and you'll see there's some information there on related costs. I should highlight that going forward, this will mean that we'll reduce the number of apprentices that we'll be able to employ on an ongoing basis. Second aspect in the report is for our employees who are already on the living wage rate. This is updated on an annual basis, and you'll see on 23rd of October the new increased rate of £12.60 an hour was announced. We have 6 months, up 6 months to implement that, but we are proposing early implementation from January to best support these overweight employees. Have to any questions?
Any questions, colleagues? No. Is everybody content to accept the recommendations at 2.0, including implementing, as we have done in previous years, the real living wage early? Yep. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Next item is item 18. It's in the extra papers that you got, and it's a digital and customer services strategy, and that's Lindsay that will be taking us through that.
Thank you, convener. The Council's current digital strategy and supporting action plan was approved by the committee in September 2021. In November 2023, it was agreed as part of the Auditor's annual report that the strategy would be refreshed this year. In October this year, the Accounts Commission issued a report entitled Transformation in Councils, which detailed the pivotal role which transformation will play in shaping the future for all of Scotland's councils. Added to this year's annual audit report set out 4 key actions, which were all linked to the wider transformation agenda. Taking all of this into consideration, it is officers' view that it would be premature and potentially short-sighted to prepare a long-term strategy at this stage, and that exploratory work is required to assess the council's position in respect of ICT and customer service readiness. As such, it's proposed that the strategy will be split into 2 phases. Phase 1 includes the strategy and action plan for the assessment of the council's current position and the required actions that will be required to set the council up for phase 2, which will set out a strategy for an informed and deliverable digital transformation. Clearly, this is likely to require significant investment, and this approach allows for the financial impacts of this to be included in the 2026-27 budget. This will ensure that the Council's medium-term financial plans, digital and technology plans and workforce plans are all aligned so that the Council is best placed to meet the challenges ahead. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions, colleagues? Councillor Robertson.
Thanks. Thanks, Camilla. I suppose it's a similar concern, and it's the same concern in terms of the financial management system. If there are things that we need to invest in, we know that finances are tight, we know how difficult things are in terms of the budgets of the council. But with the financial system, with any digital changes that we need to make, into any customer interface changes that we need to make, by delaying these and not doing them now, are we simply just becoming more inefficient as an organisation? And I'm not saying we are. I'm just putting the challenge out there. By delaying these things, is that a danger that we're falling into?
Nancy?
Do you can control the intention of anything we do? It's just that we need to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing, and for us to be able to take a step back and to assess where we are, also to get external support, as to see where are we at the moment in terms of our position and as compared to other councils and other comparable organisations. And I think in the longer term, it will be better and it will achieve efficiencies. I don't think there will be any significant delays. It will just be that the first part of the strategy will be that kind of explanation, trying to work out what we're doing and trying to cost things properly, so that we are investing in the things that will take us to the place where we need to be over the longer term.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is that okay?
Thanks.
Excellent. I can't see any other member with their light on. Is the committee okay to note the recommendations or approve the recommendations? Item number 19 in the same extra bit of papers that we've got, the digital modernisation programme and delivery of ICT and digital strategies paper. That's Lindsay.
Thank you, convener. The last report, members will refer to the Council's digital and ICT strategy for 2021 to 2020. And this report provides an update on the progress against that strategy and on the work of the Council's digital modernisation programme. Members will recall that digital modernisation project will be created to oversee the delivery of the Council's digital modernisation programme, and it was agreed that £1 million of reserves would be used against this programme. The report to members sets out the progress of projects that have been taken forward by the Digital Modernisation Programme Board. Happy to take any questions.
Hey, colleagues, any questions on this item? No. Is everybody happy to agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you, colleagues. Item 20, the internal audit remit from Audit Committee. Lindsay, you're going to be talking to this as well. Okay, so because it's a remit from committee, we just need to note the remit. Is everybody content to do that here? Excellent. Thank you. Nice and easy one for us there. Item 21, the OD policy and communications policy updates. Morna, that's yourself.
Thank you, convener. As members are aware, we have been proposing for 18 key policies and have been related to your approval. The first student work policy and the passport policy. Appendix 1 will provide an overview of the changes to this policy, really around using the new policy template and technical changes.
Okay, thank you. I know this is one of many policies we've had come before this committee as we've done reviews. Does anybody have any questions for Morna? No, excellent. Next question. Okay, I was just checking with the FD into private session, so we're now moving into private session for the remainder of our agenda.